Howdy, guys, gals, and non binary pals. This is the Tales from the Waystone Summer Reading Program.
We are your hosts, Will and Phoenix. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the sixth installment of our series on John Scalzi's starter villain, Adventures in High-Stakes Teleconferencing, where we'll be reading chapters 21 through 24.
All right. As this is our first one back from my medical leave, I definitely need to read my little explanation of the pod from our notes. Although I do this anyway, even though we've been doing this for how many freaking years? Yes, that. Each week we'll be examining a section of starter villain and figuring out how we can turn the text from a tie to our real lives. We'll also take some time to focus on something that we have learned this week, and then we will share a recommended thing of the week. Finally, we'll wrap things up with a notable quotable from the book that made us smile or laugh or think, which I think actually happens before all of that. Anyway, before we begin, let's get some disclaimers out of the way. First of all, we are no way affiliated with John Scalzi or his publisher Tor Books. Second of all, we are naturally going to discuss some things that are like, I don't know, spoilers. So we expect that you have read through chapter 24 of Starter Villain. If you haven't, just go read it. Pause, read, come back. Good, cool. Also, word to our community, please be kind to yourselves, one another, and the creators of the worlds that we love exploring. I am, as we go forward, probably going to take Brennan Lee Mulligan's approach to repetitive intros.
This was an adventuring party.
Exactly.
All right, so let's dive into chapter 21. And we begin with a reunion between Charlie, Hera, and Persephone.
Persephone, who was not at the conference, but Hera, who is busily typing away at her desk. Charlie comes in with a selection of fine-finned foods, and Hera's just like, what is this? Why did you do this? I don't understand. Why is this?
And Charlie says, well, this is thanks for saving my life. This is thanks for being really my only friend.
Except actually he hides that particular part. Like, he doesn't say. He almost did.
But Hera is the only one who actually seems to actively take pleasure in his presence.
And Persephone.
Yeah, the cats.
But Persephone is a kitten, and her priorities lie in her own desires more than anything. So Charlie makes an interesting point of like, you are this cultured creature of wealth and status, and I have been feeding you Meow Mix. And Hera's just like, but I like Meow Mix.
Humans like potato chips.
It doesn't matter what your income is. A lot of humans just like potato chips. It doesn't really matter what potato chips they are. They are potato chips. Are they potatoes in oil? Yes. Is there salt on them? Probably. Do you like that? Yes.
Hera also reveals that she has occasionally supplemented it with some undercover DoorDash orders with some very specific instructions.
Persephone, on the other hand, is just going, fish, 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 fish. Do you want fish?
Of course.
And Hera's kind enough to share. But I think that the conversation is interesting in that it seems like Charlie is being put up on this pedestal, this interpretation that his life is more important than Hera's. And Hera does not have a problem with having almost sacrificed herself for Charlie. But Charlie is like, but you're my cat. I wasn't going to leave you. You don't have thumbs.
I love her. What does that have to do with anything?
You can't open doors.
And she's like, I would have figured a way out.
Right. I mean, we all know that Hera wouldn't have died because, to his credit, John Scalzi doesn't kill animals that we fall in love with.
I think it's also worth pointing out that Charlie acts on these very pure instincts. And I think that's one of his character traits that we are supposed to identify with. He instinctively gives people grace that maybe they don't inherently deserve because it's the right thing to do. So he stands up for his Uncle Jake at the funeral when, he didn't really have a relationship with him. And he didn't have to do that. He tries to save Dobrev from an assassin. Never mind the fact that it was never really going to be successful in the first place, and never mind also that Dobrev is a supervillain, right? When Charlie sees someone in trouble, his instinct is to act to help. And the fact that he is so undiscerning about this, Like, he's not sitting here thinking, do these people deserve my help or not? It's really more he sees himself as being in a position to act, and so he does. He is not content to be a mere innocent bystander. And I think there's something kind of heroic about that, even though he is nominally a villain.
I mean, he inherited his villainy, not chose it on his own.
Yeah, that purity of motive, I think, is what makes Charlie sympathetic.
He has a very strong moral compass.
So after this little conversation with Hera, Charlie has a debrief with Dr. Livgren and Morrison. And, here's where we again see arguably the most frustrating position to be in the universe of a John Scalzi novel is to be someone who's trying to have a straightforward, rational conversation with a John Scalzi protagonist.
Yeah, I got to admit, we've been in a bit of a John Scalzi kick because both of us have read almost all of his books. Little Fuzzy, while not actually being originally based on his own idea, because it's based off of another existing book, also just exemplifies this whole you don't want to be the person who is the manager of a John Scalzi protagonist.
And in this case, Morrison is kind of Charlie's manager.
For the most part, yeah. Although Morrison does flip it back a lot.
And she kind of has to.
She's not as put upon.
Meanwhile, Dr. Livgren really is.
Well, Dr. Livgren had all of these ideals about what working with intelligent dolphins was going to be like, and did not expect that said intelligent dolphins were going to just be
Ashholes. Yeah, it reminds me of the Jonathan Colton song, I Crush Everything, the story of a giant squid trying to make friends. And he says, the dolphins are all phony. They seem nice enough at first. They pretend to be your friend until they see you at your worst, and then they leave you. And without a word, they swim away.
Okay.
Except Scalzi dolphins never seem nice. They're just jerks.
I think Scalzi dolphins only exist in this book.
Yes.
I don't think they really do. They exist? They might exist in When the Moon Hits Your Eye.
Maybe. I don't remember dolphins in that book, though.
I don't know if I do. I listened to that while you were sick, so.
Fair. Yeah, the point being, initially, Charlie is like, well, I think they're just flipping back what they're given. And then Livgren says, no, they were like that before I even met them. And I don't call 73
Deckhead
when he can't hear me. I call him that specifically when he can hear me. And it's not meant to be a name, it's a descriptor.
All that aside, the big thing that we have to know is, in this particular instance, the whales that are off the coast of St. Genevieve are potentially intelligent and potentially just being used. But regardless of that fact, they pose a threat to the island. They are Chekhov's whales at this point. We also have, just a whole bunch of witty banter back and forth where it feels a lot like our protagonist Charlie is full of ADHD moments and not necessarily paying any attention to what he should be paying attention to. And it leads to a very funny aside about when humans name their cats, especially things like Mrs. Tum Tum. So she is Director Mrs. Tum Tum. And it just gets ridiculous and silly and weird, and I love it as an outside observer. And then as a person who consistently has conversations with not just you, but a lot of people who have ADHD, and a lot of our conversations sound like this.
In fact, I think we just had that conversation.
Very possibly. Where at the end of it, or rather not even at the end of it, in the middle of it, Morrison's just like, Charlie, could you actually focus for a moment? And I think the two of us need to get into that headspace now. Anyway, what we do find out is that it's very likely that the convocation has emulated the smart dolphins in some way, but it might also be like wish.com emulated with smart or not so smart or just radio controlled, whatever, whales. And that's what we need to know about this conference right now. The other thing we do need to know is that the dolphins are having a sick out.
And the timing couldn't be worse because Charlie has to have a video conference with Gratas from the convocation.
Okay, this is where Charlie being Charlie and having that kind of personality actually is very satisfying. So you get to see both the instances of Charlie's ADHD-esque persona just being aggravating as crap to the people he actually likes and who like him, and you get to see Charlie using that skill, if you can call it a skill, to aggravate the crap out of Gratis.
Yeah. One thing we quickly learn is that Gratas did not learn how to use Zoom during the pandemic.
Or at least not correctly or well, or I mean, just the whole exchange of, is this encrypted because there's no lock? Forget about the lock, Charlie. No. And then Charlie getting to slam his laptop shut. This whole thing is just very witty and funny, and we're going to do no justice to it at all. But I think the thing that I do need to touch on is, man, why don't we have like a gigantic screen and, like all the things that I want a super villain lair to be? I don't like that this is just a gray conference room. It's the same conference room as every other thing that we ever do. I want something flashy. Your uncle didn't want flashy. It's like, but why not? Because he was cheap. Well, but how much could it possibly cost? Millions of dollars. Aw, I don't want to spend millions of dollars on that. Well, that was cheap.
So you get it.
So you get it. Right. Well, there's also the satisfying shut your laptop screen. And then banter about, well, if you had a gigantic screen in front of you that you were talking to, you couldn't do that. It would crush you.
I've also got to point out there is an element here that actually I think is interesting to discuss. And that is the way that people at a certain level of power offload a lot of basic functioning to their underlings. So, like, consider here, like, yeah, they're talking just on
Shirty.
laptop cameras and speakers, but even on Charlie's side, theoretically, he doesn't need Williams to go into the email and click the link that Gratas's underlings are sending to him.
Right.
And in this case, that underling is Tobias the Stabber. Right? This is stuff that Charlie could ostensibly do himself.
And up until like 3 days ago was probably doing himself.
Right. But because of power
and precedent
and just the feeling that this is maybe beneath his station, he has these underlings who are doing things that don't necessarily need to be done.
I actually don't read it as Charlie thinking that he's in a position where his underlings should do it. I think his underlings think that they should do it. On the other hand, I think that Gratas and all the others are thinking that it needs to be done by people under his station.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm trying to get at. And so Gratas doesn't know how to make sure that he set up an encrypted Zoom call because he's never had to.
He probably should have been.
Right. I do have to say this. I think Charlie is remarkably naive about the security of that encryption logo.
I also was thinking that the whole time. I'm like, you're just doing this to mess with him because I think you're smart enough to understand that that's not really actually great encryption.
I mean, it's the Mickens threat model here. I don't know if I've talked about this before. So James Mickens is a security researcher and online bon vivant. Worked at Microsoft, worked at MIT and Harvard, a whole bunch of places. And he walks through a basic idea of what your threat model looks like. If your threat is, the mafia or some organized crime ring using basic encryption and a secure password and, not answering spam messages is probably going to be enough to be fine. If your threat is a state level actor, so the NSA in this case, you're gonna get NSA'd. And what are your mitigations? Living on a submarine, crystals maybe, you're still gonna get NSA'd. They'll find a way in. Because remember, state level actors have access to these tools that most of us, even the best private hackers in the world, simply don't. Like there are backdoors built into all of these tools that they have, and that the software companies that make them are required to leave in and not disclose to anybody else. It's a gnarly business like that. So, yeah, the assumption of digital privacy and digital security is oftentimes unfounded. And it is why, for instance, when you look at major software companies' style guides, like how they're supposed to talk about things, they never refer to their systems as secure, because that's a major assumption there. Because the only truly secure computer system is one that has no power and is welded shut into a sealed box and then dumped to the bottom of the Marianas Trench. And even then, only mostly.
And has nothing on the hard drive.
Right. It better have nothing on the hard drive. It better have never had anything on the hard drive.
Or not even have a hard drive.
Yeah, while we're at it, yeah, let's just not have any storage on it.
Right. No operating system, no storage, no internet, no power cables between the elements inside of said case,
Yeah, no cache or anything like that where anything might get stored.
no motherboard.
Yeah, yeah. No chip while we're at it. Yeah. That's probably the closest you can truly get to a secure internet system. Or
Well, not even internet system, no modem.
yeah, right. That's the closest you can get to a secure computing system. So, yeah.
Just dump a whole bunch of rare earth minerals down into the bottom of the Marianas Trench.
While you're at it, yeah. And then magnets.
And then just deconstruct the crap out of all of it and have nothing on it.
Yep. You know, and while you're at it, just go back in time and stop yourself from making it in the first place. There you go.
There you go.
Problem solved.
So ultimately, we just have this exchange on Zoom that is quite funny, where I know I've told this story before, but Charlie essentially gets to be the person who does all the things the abused call center worker wants to do. Which is to say, every time you're screamed at, because people do scream at you when you're doing customer service and have absolutely no control over any of their stuff. Cannot fix it. You're an underling. You basically are just there to answer the phone. And if it's a major issue, pass it on to someone else. He does what everybody who gets screamed at over the phone for any reason whatsoever just wants to be able to do. He gets to just slam the laptop shut and frustrate the crap out of the person on the other end. And I have worked in a call center where a person probably was fuming when he first initially called, but maybe was in a little more control over himself at that point when he first called. The thing is, he got hung up on for something he said. We weren't allowed to hang up on people unless they did personal insults or threatened. We were being monitored. And I watched this person's, repeating, trying to do phone calls, bounce through the entire call center. Everyone around me eventually hung up on him. Some people got him again. It's luck of the draw. You don't always get the same person. I got this person on the phone because I knew it was eventually probably going to get to me. And I was very clear. I'm like, you're being hung up on because you're threatening people or you're swearing at them, like calling them names. Don't do that and we won't have a problem. Here, give me your information. I'll try to look up your problem. I'll try to help you. And then he called me a
Bench.
and I hung up on him. Seriously, don't swear at or threaten customer service people if you want to get anywhere through this call. Just don't do it. Hold yourself back or call when you're calmer.
The other thing to remember is that it's not just a tactic that's used by people who are just being jerks. It's also something that is used by people with actual malevolent intent. Calling up and abusing somebody on the helpline is a way that they can oftentimes try and weasel their way into an account that they're not authorized into. If they can be as brash and forthright and pushy enough and mean and rude enough, eventually they hope that someone will cave and give them bits of information that they may be able to use. So when you hear customer service horror stories about, wow, someone had to put up with a jerk, it may not have been just a jerk. It may have been someone who was legitimately trying to do something harmful.
This particular person was legitimately trying to get into his own accounts. Something had happened. Like, he probably had gotten fished or something. Like, he probably had gotten a lot of his money just taken out of his account without his knowledge. We would be willing to fix this problem if he would not threaten us or swear at us, as in call us things. Swearing, I didn't care about. Like, if you swore on the phone call, that wasn't a problem. It was calling me things. It was threatening me. It was any of the things that I was legitimately given permission to hang up on people for. And I did. It's not to make the people angry, it's to protect yourself.
So, all of this to say, Gratas is trying to shake down Charlie, first by blaming him for the explosion at the Bellagio.
Which is not Charlie's fault, which we know. And I think that the convocation knows.
Oh, they completely know.
Because Charlie figures out that it was almost certainly Gratas. Because Gratas has been promoted to being the head of the convocation. A lot of Dobrev's notes have now been given to Gratas as he is now the person in charge. I think the big thing is Charlie is being portrayed as quick on his feet and able to determine things through wits and smarts and outsmarting.
So, I think what we see with Charlie here is there's a couple things. One, he's a pretty good judge of character. Like, he recognizes when people are trustworthy and in what capacity they can be trusted. And he's also got a really good
Bullshit.
detector. And so he pretty quickly realizes that just giving them $100 billion or whatever is not something that's good for either of them.
Well, right, because the members of the convocation have a hard time just sitting on it. They have a patience problem and an impulse problem. They're just going to flood that money into all sorts of economies that can't handle it.
Yeah, like the inflationary effects of all of that money just suddenly appearing in their coffers would be massive because they would go out and get massive James Bond Spectre level supervillain layers. And
Like with $50 million screens.
yeah,
Yeah, they would definitely do that.
yeah, they would do things like that. They would be splashing the cash around, so to speak, in ways that would draw the attention of the governmental agencies that have so far willingly turned a blind eye. And because most of their money is kept in these sort of non liquid accounts that are designed specifically to be ignored by governmental agencies.
So, interesting parallel. While we were playing Lock Stitch a few months back, there was a point at which a ton of wealth that could have been spread out into like government programs to help people who were down on their luck or, spread through the economy in other ways. And one of the suggestions of what could be done is give it to the person who hoards all the money. And the thing about it is that actually giving a large sum of money to a person who hoards money and just sits on it does not affect the economy. It doesn't cause inflation. It doesn't cause prices to go up. It doesn't cause like a whole bunch of just ripple effects. It just keeps everything stable as long as he doesn't spend it. So if we're talking about the like large scale effect of things, you can use that money to help people individually. And my preference would be to flood that money into helping to support the people who need assistance. And then it will affect the economy, but it will affect it in lower and lower amounts as you get more and more up the monetary strata. So by the time you get to the middle class or the upper middle class, like the effects aren't necessarily felt, but you buoy the people at the bottom. And hopefully that buoying is actually more effective than whatever the price increases wind up being.
Well, and the net result typically of adding more money at the bottom of the economy is that it creates demand, which creates the requirement for jobs, which creates more wealth for people further up the line as well.
And also continues to buoy the people at the bottom because it helps bring them up. Like, that's the preference that I actually had for imaginary world TTRPG. It's not real. And, for the most part, a lot of us that play that are very much socialists, very much like, And then we've got the one dude who, for comedic effect, is a massive capitalist and also a money hoarder. And if he keeps all the money, which is what his preference was, it won't affect the economy in any way because he's just not going to spend it.
Or he's not going to spend any more of it than he otherwise would.
Right. It's not going to negatively affect anything. It's also not going to positively affect anything.
Right.
So that was an interesting conversation to come out of that particular experience. This case, people at the top spending billions, hundreds of billions of dollars is just going to
Fork
every single bit of the economy because it's not actually going to increase demand from the masses. It's one person, and one person isn't going to get like 100 or more laptops. They're going to get one gigantic screen, and as soon as they have it, they have it.
And it's not just that. You have to remember that the money that these people have all comes off of black budgets.
Right.
That are not supposed to exist.
So it doesn't do anything good in the first place for them to have any money.
Right, because if they spend this money, it destroys the fiction that there is a certain amount of money in circulation. And so if that throws off the circulation accounts, it can lead to stock market crashes, it can lead to bond market crashes. It leads to massive financial crisis if they spend any of this.
It's a status symbol. It's not actually liquid wealth.
Exactly. And so in this case, I think Charlie recognizes that bailing out the convocation is at best kicking the can down the road.
Not even a very long distance down the road.
No, because it won't take long for them to burn through it, and in ways that are going to draw a lot of attention that they really cannot afford to have. The whole thing about them, these secretive masters of the universe, is that if they get exposed in any way, they suddenly have no more ability to operate. They operate successfully at all because governments agree to turn a blind eye to them.
Well, throughout all these conversations, they don't really get anywhere because it's essentially Grata saying, "Give me all your money," and Charlie going, "I don't think that's a good idea, and here's why." And so multiple times of shutting down the computer, at the last one, Gratas is just like, "Don't you even think about it." And then Charlie calling the bluff and it turning out not to be a bluff.
Because Jenny's Bay has just been attacked and the pier is destroyed.
Along with two fairies. And I think, again, it speaks to Charlie's just nature and goodness that his first thought isn't about the stuff that is destroyed, but is asking, are any people hurt or killed? I think that the ethos here is that while Charlie is nominally, technically, sort of a villain, he is, in the same way that a lot of atheists are more concerned about other humans than a lot of evangelical people seem to be. Because every single atheist that I have ever really had any reason to get to know has been a lovely human being. Or at least given more of a crap about other human beings than a lot of people that I have met who are not, I'm not calling all people who are religious or have faith this. I'm calling the people who are politically evangelical this. The people that I know who are less likely to have their faith in God tend to be more, in my anecdotal experience, caring towards their fellow human than a lot of the people who are considering themselves to be evangelical, very religious, very Jesus take the wheel type people.
That's true, I think, up to a point, until you get the Ayn Rand weirdos.
Like I said, the ones that I've met, the ones that I've had occasion to get to know.
I've known a few Ayn Rand weirdos. Yeah.
I mean, at some point, you do get full circle.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on here. The first thing that we quickly learn is that nobody was hurt, and this was a warning shot.
And immediately, Charlie jumps to the correct conclusion that this was perpetrated by whales.
Whales who have what looks to be satellite transmitters that seem to be connected to a communication satellite that, wouldn't you know it, is owned by one of the convocation members.
And so the idea that comes to fruition at this point is okay, I'm going to go ahead and talk to Gratis again, and then I'm going to blow that satellite that is controlling said whales out of the sky so they can't do it again. And we're going to have discussions about getting the things that they want within reason off my island, which would be Nazi paraphernalia and things otherwise stolen by said Nazis. Like this book has a very strong worldview that tends to align with my own worldview, which is to say, Charlie has no desire to have things related to fascists in his circle of influence and or control.
He also doesn't want to have stolen property.
It's antiquities that honestly, like, I would prefer were returned to their rightful owners and or preservation societies. I don't know. Like, I would want it returned to the people who it was stolen from if at all possible. And if not, somehow otherwise taken care of and respected.
Would be preferable.
And the convocation is not going to do any of that.
No. And it's not going to be something that Charlie will be able to do by holding on to it either. So, on the next call, Charlie confirms that Gratas perpetrated the attack in his position as the head of the convocation.
So it wasn't a personal thing, it was specifically a group effort. And so now he's made the whole convocation clearly Charlie's enemy.
And with that, Charlie destroys the satellite and explains that, yep, see, we can both hurt each other. This is a path of mutual assured destruction. How about we take 48 hours to cool off and then we'll talk later? And Gratas grudgingly agrees to this. And then Charlie, knowing that he has only bought himself a little bit of time, realizes that this is the perfect time to go fix the things with the dolphins.
And then he does like labor negotiations with the dolphins, where he, again, the ethos of this story is very clearly laid out. Charlie is a terrible, quote, negotiator, and basically just gives the dolphins everything that they want, because everything that they want is relatively reasonable for a species that is currently just trapped because they're too intelligent to mix well with other dolphins, and they are dolphins, so they aren't going to be able to necessarily integrate into human society should they want to, which they don't. And their demands are actually quite reasonable for a sentient species.
And I think Charlie also does some fairly diplomatic things here as well. Like, he recognizes that, one, they have valid complaints. Two, they've got a lot of anger at a system that has been very harmful to them, and that they have basically been stuck in effectively
Fork you mode
for a long time. And that has led them to be very difficult to be able to negotiate with. So they haven't been willing to negotiate in good faith because they've never had anyone who's been willing to actually give them reason to believe that anything would be upheld. So when Charlie approaches them, the first thing he does is remind them that you guys have leverage here because we need you. So with that in mind, maybe it'd be a good idea for you guys to stop insulting us and tell us what you actually want.
Well, the end of this is really that now the dolphins have a union. Charlie has respected that choice, and they're going to work with him. Yay! Everything's a win-win. And then Charlie's like, so are you going to be the union rep?
Fork.
No.
The lead dolphin, number 73, he acknowledges right away that he is not management material.
Which I think is very healthy of him.
He's a rabble rouser, and he's an ideas guy. And he's also kind of a jerk.
Kinda.
Turns out number 65 is a lot better suited for this sort of role. So with the dolphins brought back on side and given leeway to figure out the whale problem as best they see fit, now it's time to get back with Gratis.
And now the idea is, I'm not going to give you money, but since you say that the stuff in my storeroom that I don't want is yours, come get it. If you don't come get it, I'm going to sink it to the bottom of the ocean.
This is like the worst Craigslist ad ever. like,
Yeah.
like, like Craigslist is one of those things that in principle seems great. Oh, hey, look, there's a free thing over here, but you got to arrange for pickup. I'm not shipping it. You come pick it up.
Oh, what do you know? It would have been way easier to come and get your stuff if you hadn't just blown up my pier. That's not my problem.
Yeah, I'll let you figure it out. You got 24 hours.
Just come get. I don't want it. And at the end of that phone call, like he hangs up and Morrison just kind of looks over at him, just like, you do know that they're not going to stop once they get what they want, right? And he's like, yeah, I do understand. But the reason that he did it was that he's buying time. And all it cost me are the things I couldn't use and don't want. Between giving dolphins rights and getting rid of tainted Nazi loot, you've had a busy couple of days, Morrison said. Not bad for a substitute teacher. Not great for a villain. You know what? Right now, I'm okay with that. I feel like this is definitely the wish fulfillment book that I really enjoy.
Oh, yeah, this is the if I had $1 million fantasy.
Or more accurately, multi billion dollars.
Like it's that old saw about how power doesn't corrupt, it reveals. And we see what happens when that power is given to a fundamentally decent person. And here, Charlie is doing everything he can as best he knows how with said power to be a decent person. So that means he's respecting the rights of the people who work for him
And the dolphins.
and the dolphins. I include dolphins as people. Same with cats.
Fair, but the dolphins would say that that's manucentric.
Well, I didn't say they're human. I said they're people. There's a difference. He's thinking seriously about what is the right thing to do with all of this money, knowing that it is attracting the attention of powerful interests. And how do you fight these interests without becoming like them? And, kind of grappling with the responsibilities that come with it. So, yeah, Charlie may be nominally a villain, only nominally, though, because I think there is something heroic about him. Because when push comes to shove, he is acting to help people who are under attack. He is acting to help people who are disadvantaged, people who have been disempowered. He's trying to find ways to help people who need it. And, he's recognizing that just because things have always been done a certain way doesn't mean that that needs to be the way that things have to stay. Like, take the dolphins, for instance. They've been a disadvantaged class from the beginning. They have been living effectively enslaved by their own nature because they don't have any other place to go. So Uncle Jake basically said, well, you don't have any leverage then, so you're going to do what I tell you to do. And if you don't like it, you're welcome to leave. Oh, wait, that's right. You're going to hate that.
It's the same as, hey, if you don't like living in a state whose government is disenfranchising you, you're welcome to leave. But you aren't, though, because the system has set it up so that you don't have the financial resources to leave.
Right. Just leaving is a lot harder than a lot of people give credit to. So, yeah, when Charlie approaches them, he says, well, I'm not my uncle. He thought that you didn't need to be looked after, but I think you do, just by virtue of being people, whether you have fins or fingers, right?
Or pause.
Right. Whether you are someone who walks on land or swims in the ocean, whether you have 4 legs or no legs or 2 legs, you deserve the right to have self-determination. And I'm going to respect that. And I want to give you the dignity of your labor.
To which the dolphins are like, yeah, but you could then apply that to literally all living creatures. And then the retort, you guys eat fish. Fork
Fish. Fork.
fish.
Yeah, the dolphins are not fully enlightened.
No. Anyhoozle. I think that this is a great time to move into our notable quotables.
Alrighty. I have the joy of picking our notable quotables here this week. So let me pull those up here real quick. So I have this one here first. Humans do a good job of making outcasts, she replied. It shouldn't be a surprise you do it outside of your species as well.
Yeah, that one kind of hits you in the face.
Yeah, I mean, anytime we start getting into in groups and out groups, who gets the protection of law, who gets screwed over, who gets exploited. Yeah, all that's baked in. I also have, when I got here and discovered the dolphins could actually speak and communicate with us, I was so excited. I thought there was so much that we could teach each other. Then I found out what they mostly wanted to do was tell me and every other human to go
Fork
themselves. It got old faster than you might expect. Then I need to have a video conference where I'm belittled and threatened first, but after that, I'm free. And then your uncle didn't want to pay for aesthetics. He was a practical villain. And then here's I think a really important one. Listening to people because they know more than you do is rare enough, Charlie. You even do it with cats. Maybe that's another reason why your uncle chose you.
I do have to point something out. Not only is Charlie listening to cats and listening to the dolphins and listening to other people who he views as knowing more than he does. Not only that, but a lot of those people are women, and there's not really a lampshade put on that. And I'm not sure that there should be, because quietly just having your male protagonist listen to women without having to make a huge deal about it is pretty awesome. Like, we just watched an episode of Crowd Control on Dropout where there was a person who had recently had a hysterectomy. She's one of the comics, asking men, what do you think a hysterectomy is? And the response she got from one of them was just pretty amazing. I don't know, so I'm not going to try to tell you. You know better than I do, clearly. In the interest of not saying things when I don't know that I'm right, I'm just not going to say anything, which is such a mature response.
Like, there is admitting when you don't know. There's also being able to say, I could be wrong, but I think it's this. It's being willing to admit uncertainty, being willing to defer to someone who has lived experience. One of the things that I notice here is that Charlie is exhibiting Socratic wisdom. He doesn't pretend to know anything that he doesn't know. Like, he's openly willing to admit that he's not an expert in any of this stuff. He knows that he's in over his head in a lot of this. And he also quickly recognizes that the people who do understand it, so Morrison, Hera, Williams, they're all the ones who have the lived experience with everything in here. All these people are the ones who've seen how everything works here and have expertise in it. Charlie doesn't. And so by listening to their needs and their problems, he's able to actually do something for them. Next one I've got here is, what do you want to do first then? I want to throw up from stress, I said, but let's visit the dolphins instead.
I've never actually been so stressed that I vomit.
Me neither. But then again, I've also never been put through the ringer by a massive underground cabal of supervillains. So,
Touche.
and then the last one I have is, believe me, I would be happy to get through the day without being told to
Fork
off 17 different times. So with that, what did we learn this week?
Well, you'd think that over the past 7 weeks, I would be able to learn and retain something. And I had a really hard time just kind of, what did I learn? Wait, what did I learn? Crap, this was my idea. I like learning things. What did I learn? I mean, I did learn not to belittle or offend the knitting community on YouTube. Holy buckets.
What happened?
SciShow did a video about knitted fabrics that the script made it seem like all of this stuff was very novel, and like the people who were experienced knitters might not know all the science behind some of it. And what it really was them being very excited, SciShow being very excited about all of this cool stuff that can happen with knitted fabrics, and all these innovations and all these thoughts and theories and the math behind stuff and how things work for like the stretchiness of a material, or like the flexibility or the malleability, or any of these other properties of knitted fabrics that you could make work for other purposes besides just like clothing or textiles. And a lot of people took full offense over the idea that a elitist view was being taken on something that is done by a lot of people who are not there. So the burden of knitting, like, is usually, and clothes making and everything, has historically been on women. or on lower class people or what have you. And there's just all of this like, look what I just discovered about something that these people have been developing for time immemorial, you know? Like all of it, all time. Like it's not new. It's not novel. It's not something to be gawked at. And so they tried to apologize, and their apology was picked apart. And then they apologized again and took the video down. And I think that that was a shame because I think that the video had things to teach us. But what I have learned is don't anger the knitting community. That is a thing I learned, but that's not what I'm here to. I mean, no. But what I actually picked was that for me, a thing I've learned, and this is strictly about myself, is that the act of creation trumps the created item. I have, like many creative people, a lot of works in progress. And yeah, I'll flip back and forth and come back to some things. But the experience of learning a new thing while I'm making it, and this is the same for like learning guitar or any other of my instruments that are in this room. This is the same as like when I build Lego or when I paint or when I do crochet work or any of it. The act of actually creating is more fulfilling than the item at the end.
Yeah, that tracks. I know that during the break, one of the first challenges that you faced was, well, this is the time when normally I would be working on podcast stuff, and my brain says I need to actually be doing something productive. And I remember it being kind of a challenge for you to recognize that that doesn't mean I have to jump right back into the podcast. I have time now to work on a painting project or do some crochet work or build Legos or
And I think I finished maybe 3 things,
yeah.
2 of them Lego projects.
And at the same time, I could see that having that time to learn something, to make something, to, just do something for the joy of doing it seemed to be really good for your mental well-being.
I agree.
So that's a good thing. So that it's my turn for thing of the week. So over the past couple months or so, I have been getting pretty hardcore into the Expanse novels by James S.A. Corey. I'm about 2/3 of the way through the third novel so far, and I've been really enjoying it. The best way to describe it is it's a blue collar space opera, has shades of Firefly to it. Though I think what's interesting is that the characters are more idealistic, but the world is a lot more cynical than Firefly. Like, Firefly has this idea that if only you just tell everybody about what happened, what's going on, what the bad guys are doing, it'll be enough. And in the first novel, Leviathan Wakes, that approach ends up being disastrous because the thing that you quickly learn is that people have a way of reading whatever you have said in whatever way they want to. And so that seemingly noble impulse ends up leading to a mass unnecessary conflict by people who are looking for an excuse to go to war. And you just provided them with a reason. Yeah, so it's interesting seeing how all of it works. And, it's a universe that, is really ruled by gravity. Just the act of accelerating and decelerating a starship is one of the most destructive things that can happen, especially if it happens in an uncontrolled fashion. It's pretty cool. It's a lot of fun. I like the characters, I like the world. I also enjoy the political intrigue elements of it. And it also has some pretty killer horror elements to it as well.
Now, the pen name, the author, is James A. Corey.
James S.A. Corey, which is a pen name for two people, Daniel Abraham and Ty Frank.
And then one of them helped with Game of Thrones.
Yeah, Ty Frank used to be George R.R. Martin's personal assistant.
Got it. So I'm going to say this. They are really thick books, and it's really cool to see you so excited to read. To your knowledge, are all of the books supposed to be like good quality throughout, or does it suffer from some of the like longer series of our childhood, Wheel of Time, uh, or even Game of Thrones?
As my friends who have read it are telling me the ninth book is as good as the first. So, yeah, I think I have some good fun ahead of me.
That's awesome. Nominal thing to also recommend thing of the week-ish thing. I do want to say that Critical Role Campaign 4, super good so far, even though there's only been 2 episodes at the time of this recording.
I'd second that. Well, with that, I'd like to thank you for potting with me.
Thank you for potting with me.
And thanks for listening to Tales from the Waystone. Join us next time as we continue the summer reading program with chapters 25 through the end of Starter Villain.
Oh. I just want to let everybody know that we do know what the next book in our series of our summer reading program is. It's Bookshops and Bone Dust. So we're coming back to the world of Legends and Lattes, just a prequel, right?
Yeah.
I haven't read it. I don't think I'm going to read it until we are reading it.
I think it's going to be fun.
I think that might bring an interesting element because I did the same thing kinda with Legends and Lattes. I'd read like half of it, but this one I haven't read at all.
I think you're going to enjoy it.
I hope so.
All right.
Well, with that, we'd like to thank our friend Shawnee Jang for our theme music.
And many thanks to John Scalzi for creating this world we've enjoyed exploring.
Audio production and editing courtesy of me, Phoenix McCullough.
And writing and project management courtesy of me, Will McCullough.
If you would like to help support us and have the means to do so and would like to get our bonus content, please consider becoming a patron on our Patreon page, patreon.com/waystonepod. If not, at least think about maybe possibly, I don't know, joining our Discord. That would be amazing. Oh my goodness.
And as always, here's to one more day above the roses.
To one more day above the roses.
Ding! Yeah, we were rusty.
It's been so long since we've done this that we've forgotten all the things that we need to make sure that we do or don't do. As in, rustle, 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 rustle all your clothing. Rustle, 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 rustle all the book. Rustle, 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 cat make noise. That picks up on the mic. The weird high-pitched squeaky noise that I edit out every time I hear it. Man, it's the middle of October and we haven't done this since August. We be rusty.
All taken care of. We good.
We good?
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 We good.
We good?